Good evening and welcome to News at 6 on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Well, the controversial bull running sport Jallikattu in Tamil Nadu has been put on hold for now by the Supreme Court. That is the big story you'll be looking at. Also in the top international focus, 10 people have been killed in a suicide bomb attack. We'll get you all the details. First up, the headlines. Jallikattu put on hold once again by the Supreme Court. Politicos and organizers cry foul, say it is part of the state's culture and tradition. Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari raises the issue of tolerance, says it alone cannot build the foundation for an inclusive and pluralistic society. Russian president calls for a new constitution for Syria for lasting peace, also cites regional differences as major hindrance. And India gets off to a bad start in Australia, lose the first ODI in Perth by 5 wickets. Well, the big story that we are tracking, the controversial bull running sport Jallikattu has once again been put on hold by the Supreme Court just 8 days after the centre had lifted a ban on the sport. The centre's decision was seen as significant in the face of assembly polls in Tamil Nadu this year. And for more on this, for more on this, let's go across to Mr. Narayan Lakshman, who is the Deputy Editor with The Hindu. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this evening. Sir, now Jallikattu really, that has been championed by politicians, has been put on hold for now by the Supreme Court. This is just days after the union government lifted a ban on the sport. What is the political impact of the sport really now in the state?
So I think to understand what the political impact is, it's important to understand the sort of social setting in which the sport occurs. It is largely seen as part of the Pongal celebration, Pongal being the important festival linked to agriculture and so on, which is coming up at the end of this week.
Yes.
And certainly it is a part of the Tamil psyche and the Tamil culture. But having said that, it has definitely entered national and state politics this time because, as we saw, as you mentioned as well, the centre has allowed it, and now the Supreme Court has reversed that decision. And so it will certainly play some sort of a role in the minds of voters when it comes to the upcoming elections in the state.
And what really are the options really before the centre? Because we understand that Jayalalitha really has been putting pressure on the centre to ensure that the sport is held this year itself. Now with the Supreme Court order, what are the really options that the centre has?
The centre actually doesn't have too many options because they will obviously try to continue fighting the case in the courts. But at the same time, the other big factor is that the social norms have also changed with regards to animal rights.
Yes.
And, you've seen with the involvement of PETA and AWBI and, animal rights groups, you've seen sort of getting into this case and talking about the welfare of, the animals, in this case, the bullocks, the cows used. And so I think it's going to be, the centre will have to fight it out legally, but failing that, it will come down to other issues. They will have to not, if they lose the case, they will have to focus on other questions such as election alliances, election arithmetic, things like that, and also obviously the campaigning effort. So this may become a liability if it becomes too important within the campaign.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Also, Dr. Manilal Valiyete, who is the Director Veterinary Affairs. PETA is now joining us on the phone line. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this evening. So how do you look at this development now? Because the Supreme Court has stayed that order, that the notification that the centre had issued. How do you look at that development now?
This is a partial victory for animals, especially the bulls.
Yes.
Because thousands of bulls have been spared from torture now because the Supreme Court stayed the notification of the MOEF. Now we look at this way that we have been part of many inspections of these events from 2010 to 14. where we could gather a lot of evidence in the form of photographs and videos which established that without torturing these animals, without subjecting these animals to fear and pain, these animals cannot be used for this kind of performance. So in a way, it's inherently cruel, and that is exactly the Supreme Court have upheld through the judgment of 2014, which said the provisions of the PC Act, especially Section 3 and 11, and also read with Article 51G of the Constitution of India. As per those provisions, these events are inherently cruel and he's banned. So, we are very happy about the stay order which we could get on this matter, being a petitioner.
All right, but there are reports, sir, that now there are probably the centre is now looking at other options on how to really circumvent this order. They're saying that ordinance route probably can be used in order to make changes really in the animal rights law. If that happens, then how do you think that your organization will react to that?
Even if the central government come with ordinance or whatever way to overrule the Supreme Court judgment of 2014, the fact remains the same that the provisions of the Constitution of India have said, certain provisions for the animals. 51G very clearly says that as citizens of India, we have to be responsible towards animals, and we have to be compassionate towards animals, and we should protect them.
Yes.
So the constitutional rights of the animals are still there. So the fact that we have evidence that even if these events are allowed under regulation, none of these regulations are going to help these animals. None of these regulations are going to prevent cruelty. So I think the fact remains the same. These events are inherently cruel. They are just organized for the purpose of entertainment, and it doesn't speak well of our culture, which talks more about compassion.
All right. Sir, thank you so much for joining us this evening. So the controversial bull running sport Jallikattu has once again been put on hold by the Supreme Court. Now, there have been protests really, a number of protests by politicians and other activists who say that it is in line with the culture of the state, but at the same time, the animal rights activists are very happy about it. Let's take a look at this report.
The centre's argument for lifting the ban on Jallikattu did not hold much ground in the Supreme Court on Tuesday. Despite opposition by animal rights activists, the centre had lifted the ban just days before Pongal. But with the Supreme Court now staying that order, this year too, the sport will not be part of Pongal festivities.
नोटिफिकेशन जो था वो स्पेसिफिकली जल्लीकट्टू तमिलनाडु और बुल कार्ट रेस महाराष्ट्र, गुजरात, कर्नाटक आदि में, पंजाब एटसेट्रा में अलाउ कर रहा था. इसीलिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इस पर पूर्ण प्रतिबंध लगाते हुए इस तरह की किसी भी स्पोर्ट को ऑर्गेनाइज करने पर रोक लगा दी है.
नोटिफिकेशन इशू करी है, दैट इज एब्सोल्युटली कॉन्ट्ररी टू द सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट और जो हमारा कानून है प्रिवेंशन ऑफ क्रुएल्टी टू एनिमल्स एक्ट. सो आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने जो अब नोटिफिकेशन इशू हुई है उसको स्टे कर दिया है.
I am saddened that we had to go back to the Supreme Court for what I thought was a absolutely clear-cut order which we had received earlier, and that we had to go back and fight the case all over again.
The Modi government had on 8th January lifted the 4-year-old ban on Jallikattu, albeit with certain provisions. The centre's notification was challenged in the Supreme Court by the Animal Welfare Board of India, People for Ethical Treatment of Animals India and a Bangalore-based NGO. The BJP says it will now look for legal options.
Definitely we wanted to respect the sentiments of Tamil people, and we did some efforts to counter the argument and to lift the ban. So we did it with good intention. Now the law has put a block. Let us see, wait and watch, and we have to analyze the situation, and again we have to try to take back the ban.
I think maybe in a way this is a welcome change. That is my personal opinion, because as I said even earlier, that somewhere it is cruelty to either not discussing the merits or demerits really of Jallikattu.
The issue, coming as it does just months before assembly elections in Tamil Nadu, is also mired in political colours. With inputs from Ravindra Shoran, Bureau Report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, hours after the Supreme Court stayed the centre's notification on Jallikattu, now Tamil Nadu Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha has sought the Prime Minister's intervention on the issue. Now, she has asked Narendra Modi to promulgate an ordinance to enable the conduct of the festival. Meanwhile, protests broke out in many parts of Tamil Nadu where the sport is popular. The protest came despite the centre's assurance that it would take appropriate action on the issue. The protesters say that the bull taming sport is a part of their tradition and cultural practices that need to be nurtured. Now, there were road blockades and demonstrations that hit normal life. Now, police admitted that the situation was tense in some areas, but it also claimed that it was under control. In other news, signaling a thaw in the backdrop of the Pathankot attack, Home Minister Rajnath has said that there was no reason to disbelieve Pakistan's assurance that it will take effective action on the inputs given about the perpetrators of the terror attack. After the attack, India had provided actionable intelligence to Pakistan seeking action against the perpetrators of the terrorist act. Now, India has identified Masood Azhar as the mastermind of the attack and has called on Islamabad to act on the information of the foreign secretary level talks are to take place as scheduled on 15th of January.
पाकिस्तान गवर्नमेंट ने आश्वस्त किया है कि वो प्रभावी कार्रवाई करेंगे। मैं समझता हूं कि इसके संबंध में अभी आप प्रतीक्षा कीजिए और चूंकि पाकिस्तान गवर्नमेंट ने आश्वस्त किया है तो उस पर अविश्वास करने का कोई कारण अभी नहीं है।
Meanwhile, the US has said that it is encouraged by the fact that the Pakistan government has condemned the Pathankot terror attack and promised a thorough investigation. State Department spokesperson John Kirby said that Pakistan has assured of a thorough and fair probe. He also said that the US would like the two countries to continue with their peace talks. Remember, last week, US Secretary of State John Kerry had asked the Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to find out the truth and had stressed on the need to stay focused on the pressing challenge of terrorism in the region. Meanwhile, back home, Mohammad Hamid Ansari said on Tuesday that tolerance alone was not a strong enough foundation for building an inclusive and pluralistic society. He also made a strong pitch for interfaith dialogue to remove misunderstandings. Now, inaugurating an interfaith conference in Kerala, the Vice President said that along with tolerance, it was important to accept and understand religions in order to build an inclusive and pluralistic society. Quoting Swami Vivekananda, the Vice President said that we must not only tolerate other religions, but also positively embrace them, as truth is the basis of all religions. He said the institutions of the state must ensure that the principles of secularism is observed in letter and spirit in public life.
The purpose of interfaith dialogue is to increase our understanding of and respect for other religious systems and institutions, and thereby increasing our appreciation of their values. To promote real understanding, interreligious and interfaith dialogue has to be more than mere words or talk. It must include human interaction and relationships.
And for more national news, let's see our special segment, Nationwide. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha today announced 126 e-Seva centres across Chennai through video conferencing facility from Secretariat. Various government services like the payment of property tax, birth or death certificates can be availed of from the centres. The centres would also accept cash payment of electricity bills. The services were set up at a cost of 1.95 crore rupees. The BSE Sensex and NSE Nifty fell for the second day today on account of selling in frontline blue chip stocks taking cues from the Asian markets. Investors also remained cautious ahead of IIP data for December and CPI inflation data that was released a short while ago. Sensex closed 143.01 points down at 24,682.03, while the Nifty settled 53.55 points down at 7,510.3. Carcasses of 30 baleen whales were found washed ashore near the Tiruchendur beach in Tamil Nadu early this morning. 250 of the same species of whales have been stranded in shallow waters. The fishermen and officials reportedly dragged many of the whales back into the sea, but they kept returning to the beach. Meanwhile, a team of top officials of the Fisheries Department was rushed to the spot to conduct a probe. And in News at 6, we'll take a very short break. We'll be back with international and sports news. Stay with us.
Gyan Chopper is the ancient version of Indian snakes and ladders. This intriguing game was popular among the old, the young, and the rulers as well. The chopper has its origin in the Jain philosophy. It tells the story of virtue. Each square, in turn, also narrates some message of wisdom.
Welcome back. Now, Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj met Syrian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs Walid al-Muallim in Delhi today to discuss a host of bilateral issues besides the situation in Syria. The visit assumes significance in view of fresh initiatives taken by the United Nations to bring peace to the war-torn country. More than 3 lakh people really have been killed in the past 4 years in Syria, and 7 million have fled to other nations. India has so far refused to join any sides in the Syrian conflict, but has shown a keen interest in the state of affairs in the country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held detailed talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the growing threat of Islamic State during his visit to Moscow earlier. And echoing calls for a political solution in Syria, Russian President Vladimir Putin said working on a new constitution for the war-ravaged country is the first step towards peace. Putin acknowledged that the task was likely to be difficult, but that was not unattainable. In an interview to a German paper Bild, Putin said that constitutional reforms must be followed by early presidential and parliamentary elections, but he saw the regional differences of Saudi Arabia and Iran as a major hindrance. Meanwhile, Iran and Syria have vowed cooperation to combat terrorism and organized crime in that region. Iranian Interior Minister exchanged views with the senior Syrian officials on his 2-day visit to that country.
Нужно двигаться по направлению конституционной реформы. Это сложный процесс, конечно. А затем на базе этой новой конституции провести досрочные выборы и президента, и парламента. Только сам сирийский народ должен определить, кто, как будет управлять страной. Он не стремится к уничтожению собственного населения.
And in related news, after the UN received credible reports of people dying of starvation there, evacuation calls have increased to save the town of Madaya. The UNSC is holding a special meeting to discuss the issue as aid trickles into the rebel-held town.
The political tug-of-war continues in Syria, with parties oblivious to the dire situation on the ground. With thousands trapped in the crossfire and many in urgent need of medical treatment, the United Nations Security Council held a meeting to discuss the crisis, mainly in the rebel-held town of Madaya. Credible reports of people dying of starvation there has raised alarm.
Humanitarian coordinator Yaqub El-Hilo, you may have heard this earlier, that whilst he was at the hospital in Madaya, he saw that around 400 people have been identified who must be evacuated immediately. We must seek to do this and put the arrangements in place as soon as at all possible for medical treatment, or they are in grave peril of losing their lives and dying with either the causes being from malnutrition or for complications for other medical reasons.
Well, we need full access, and that's what we agreed on in the ISSG meeting in New York and the UN Security Council. and we're raising it with all parties right now. We're pressing for it very hard. It has to happen.
The town has been under government siege for months. 4 trucks loaded with food and medical aid arrived on Monday, the first to be allowed into Madaya since mid-October. Aid was also delivered to 2 other towns, Foa and Kefraya, besieged by rebel forces in the northern province of Idlib.
ليش نسبة الوفيات يوميا في مدينة مضايا حالة الجو؟ يوميا شخص إلى شخصين على الأقل بسبب نقص التغذية وعدم تناول الطعام الدولي. في 200 أو 300 حالة إدمان بشكل يومي.
But these steps are trivial compared to the plight of the residents. A few locals were given permission to leave, but there are hundreds awaiting immediate evacuation.
أحرار الشام وجبهة النصرة وهدول عندهم أكل بس ما بيطعموا حدا. نحن دبرنا حنا نجيب الحشا إيش ناكلها.
ملتهب الكبد معه وبدي أطلع معي التقرير الطبي بدي طلعه. لا في أدوية لا في دكاترة ما في شيء. صار له 3 أيام والسيرون معلق بإيده.
The blockade of Madaya has become a focal point for Syrian opposition leaders who are boycotting the talks with the Syrian regime later this month until this and all other sieges are lifted. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
And on to news from Southeast Asia. With Myanmar preparing for transition of power this month, the outgoing government kicked off a Union Peace Conference today, hoping to end insurgency in the country. President Thein Sein and Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi spoke during the opening ceremonies, with Suu Kyi saying that she was ready to take responsibility for the peace process.
Myanmar's outgoing government is making an attempt to build peace ahead of the transition of power to Aung San Suu Kyi's National Democratic Party. It is the biggest gathering of political leaders in the country since its independence in 1948. The opening day of 5-day Union Peace Conference was attended by Myanmar's President Thein Sein and Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi. 700 representatives from the government, military, political parties and 8 armed groups who signed a ceasefire agreement early in October also joined them. The peace conference will focus on inclusive participation of stakeholders and is aimed at ending armed conflict and build national reconciliation on the basis of political dialogue framework approved by a tripartite Union Peace Dialogue Joint Committee. This committee involves the government, ethnic armed group and political parties. Suu Kyi reiterated that Myanmar's ethnic minority rebel groups should be brought into the peace talks and that efforts to end conflict should not instead divide them. Early in October 2015, Thein Sein had signed a nationwide ceasefire agreement, but 7 out of 15 rebel groups had declined to sign it. For nearly 6 decades, Myanmar had been reeling under armed conflicts. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
And the big international story coming in from Turkey, where a large explosion earlier this morning in Istanbul left 10 people dead and 15 others wounded. The blast rocked Sultan Ahmet Square, a major tourist attraction in the city. A statement from the governor's office said that the investigations were being conducted into the type of explosive which led to the blast and also into those who are responsible for it. In the past year, Turkey has become a big target of the Islamic State, with the 2 bombings blamed on the radical Islamic group. And on to some sports news. Well, India started off the 5-match ODI series on a losing note as Australia won the first ODI in Perth by 5 wickets. Rohit Sharma's brilliant turn went in vain as the horse reached a target of 310 with 4 balls to spare. Australia lost both openers early to debutant Barinder Saran. However, captain Stephen Smith and George Bailey combined together for a 221-run third-wicket partnership to see their side reach the target comfortably. Bailey scored 112 runs while Smith fell in the final over for 149. Saran finished with 3 wickets for 56 runs in his debut match. Earlier, India started their innings on a positive note with Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli adding 207 runs for the second wicket. Kohli fell 9 runs short of his ton as he was caught on 91 runs. Rohit Sharma, however, remained unbeaten on 171 as the visitors reached a total of 309 for the loss of 3 wickets.
310 was a very good score. They batted really well, but still, if you see, they got it in the last over, which means, I feel if we had bowled slightly better, we could have put more pressure on them, maybe induced a few big shots quite early in the innings, but that was not the case.
And more sporting action now in Sports Beat. The world number 1 duo for Sania Mirza and Martina Hingis extended their winning streak to 27 matches after winning the opening round of the Sydney International. The Indo-Swiss pair eased past Anta Asia Rodionova and Arena Rodionova 6-2, 6-3 to reach the quarters. But Leander Paes and his French partner Jeremy Chardy were not so lucky as they bowed out of the tournament following a straight set loss in the men's doubles opening round. The pair lost 4-6, 4-6 to Brazilian-Canadian third seeds Marcelo Melo and Daniel Nestor. Paes will start as the defending champion at the Australian Open next week along with the Swiss Martina Hingis in the mixed doubles category. Barcelona forward Lionel Messi has won the Ballon d'Or award for the world's best player for the record 5th time. The 28-year-old Argentine beat Real Madrid forward Cristiano Ronaldo and teammate Neymar for the award. Barcelona coach Luis Enrique won the World Coach of the Year award after leading his side to 5 of the 6 trophies in 2015. Well, that's all in this news bulletin, but news and updates continue on your channel. Thanks for watching.